evening, everyone. Tonight is Monday the 17th of May 2010, and I have great pleasure introducing our guest speaker for tonight, Frank Greenslade, who's going to talk about, his talk is called The Development of the Maylands Peninsula from the Claypits to the Parklands. So I'd like to welcome Frank. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Margaret. And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Well, actually, I wanted to go just back a little bit further than that as to the way we got the Claypits, because that's very necessary to understand the environment of the area. And we go right back to when the peninsula was occupied by the hardy, by the Tranby settlers, who then there was quite a lot of them. The Hardy brothers and the Clarksons and quite a lot. And they tilled the land and became known as Peninsula Farm, and it did supply Perth in those very early days, back from 1830. Well, what really happened there was that the first clay pit on the peninsula was developed by the Hardy, well, certainly Joseph Hardy, in building his third house, and the pond is still there. We know it as Tranby Pond. Most people realise that was the first clay pit on the Maylands on the peninsula. We go from there to what actually happened was that Joseph Hardy died in about the 1870s, I think it was, and he had one son, and I think it was 5 daughters. And the daughters weren't allowed to marry unless they married a padre. So I think only one achieved that. But he had one son, Richard Hardy, who had been sent back to England to study and became quite a businessman around Perth. And as bricks were short, he formed a company called the Peninsula R Brickworks, and that was down on the peninsula, right at the tip of the peninsula, and that lasted for about 10 years, I think, and then until the supply of bricks caught up, and then he sold the property and the buildings and the stack and everything to the pottery people, Mills Pottery, 1900. So that's a significant date. I have a photo here of, I don't know if you can grab that, Roger, of a wharf and one of the tugs, or might have been the little boat at the base, the river there, and a photo here of the pottery with the stack, and that ran for about 20 years. In fact, the Peninsula R Brickworks dug the first clay pits on the tip of the peninsula, over the road from Clarkson Road. Remembering those days that transport was very difficult. There were no motor trucks, of course. Any transport had to be by road, and therefore it was difficult to get clay from everywhere else except the river. Mills Pottery actually did ship a lot of their clay in from the river, but the very first clay pit on the Maylands Peninsula, apart from Tranby Pond, was the Peninsula R Brickworks, and that clay pit was just over the road from Clarkson Road, opposite virtually where the water, the kids' waterland, I think they call it now. And that was the first clay pit that was being filled, as Mr. Dufty, who's present tonight, can tell us. But let's not jump ahead of that. So Mills Pottery was doing very well down there, but there was a break-up in the family. We can't get to the bottom of it, but slowly the family split up, and potteries there was one started across the river, and one in East Perth. And a guy by the name of John Law, who was looking for good clay land, offered to buy Mills Pottery out, and therefore the land. And he was securing land for his brickworks, which he had already a brickworks up in the hills, but the clay was better down on the peninsula. So he bought up all the land. Now I have here, I don't know if this is a very old map called the right bank of the Swan River, and it's marked here Peninsula Farm, but it does show, if you can study it, and I doubt whether the camera would pick this up, but you could look at it afterwards, and it shows the area down there as very swampy in the area where the clay pits were in fact developed. So there was another feature that happened in those early days, and that was the old Maylands Aerodrome. They bought some of the land off Richard Hardy. In fact, they took it over. Richard Hardy wanted to. No, Richard Hardy was dead by then, so whoever had bought it. Anyhow, they took the land over and formed the old Maylands Aerodrome, which is on the tip of the peninsula on the side there. And that lasted for, 1924 to 1963. So that was another feature of the peninsula. But the peninsula in those days, even though the brickworks was operating, was very sparsely occupied. Richard Hardy sold off most of it about 1905. And I think that they had 2 attempts to sell it off, but a lot of the land there was in 5-10 acre lots, and it was never really occupied at all until the latest development. So that's the way it was. But the brickworks, Metro Brick started their brickworks in 1927. And slowly dug the clay out, what we knew as the North Pit, and then there was Johnson Road, which divided the North Pit from the South Pit. So they dug under Johnson Road and then dug out from the South Pit. They wanted to dig under the aerodrome, but they wouldn't let them. They wanted to dig up Johnson Road, but they wouldn't let them. So Johnson Road remained down there, and so that's the way it proceeded, right up really until the 1980s. So this is about where the Metro Brick decided to sell off the property. They did have two kilns there operating in the earlier days, but as the time went by, there were other brickworks that started, and they never really did produce a real fashion brick. They were all wire cut bricks. They were great bricks, but they were running out of clay, and they would have had to cart clay in. So they actually finished up around the 1980s, and they sold the land to the City of Stirling. The City of Stirling bought the land to dump rubbish in it, solely to dump rubbish. In those days, you see a hole, you fill it with rubbish, and that's what happened. Then they then had to determine how they were going to what would happen to the moisture that was leaking into the tips, into the pits. And as you and I, most of us here, would remember, the pits started filling with water, and became a great bird haven. And that is what I want to show you tonight, is what the pits were like when and after we started objecting to this. And there was one group started, I must say, by Mr. and Mrs. Dufty, and a lot of us here. Did you hand me back that list of people? Here it is here. known as the People for the Peninsula, and formed in about the mid-1980s, I think it was, Alan? 88, was it? We have, I've got 2 boxes of the correspondence, etc., of that, and what a fight we put up. So we then formed this group, and the City of Stirling were very critical of us. The local councillor didn't agree with what they were doing. The City of Council said that we want to fill it with rubbish, fill it in and build 1,000 units on it. And this was the talk at the time. So that's what was they were pushing for, and we were objecting to. And there were many meetings held. I'll just pass these round, and I just want you to just look at some of the publicity that the people of the peninsula, just look at them all, and just see the way that we got the groups together. We had many meetings, we passed many motions, and still the City of Stirling still were determined to do this. One of the problems we had was that they attempted what they term a test fill. And so we objected to this. I was looking for the film I know I've got somewhere where we stood in front of the trucks. Remember that? I've got this, and I just can't find it at the moment. I was going to bring it along tonight. But we, over the weekend, Joe and I made these posters up, you know, birds before dollars, all this sort of thing, and we stood in front of the trucks, and we previously rang the TV stations, and we told them it was on. I knew a policeman, and I rang him up and I said this was going to happen, and what could happen, will they arrest us? And he said, oh, I think they'll give you a go. So they gave us a go. The policemen were called, and after about half an hour, the senior person there said to me, I don't know exactly what his rank was, he said, look, Frank, he said, I'm sorry, but if you continue this, we're going to have to arrest you. And he said, you think you've had a fair go? And I said, oh, I think so. So we all got behind one of the gates there, and we rattled these gates as the trucks came in, and the TV stations all reported this. It was on every station. It was great publicity. Now, what if it was that or the publicity we got and the effort the people of the peninsula had put into this, I really think won the day, because the City of Stirling then, we were pushing the fact that it was going to be a rubbish tip again, and the City of Stirling then went out for quotes, if you like, to what to do with it. So now this first, we have a cassette here, which shows one of the things we did. One was to produce a video to take to the City of Stirling to show them what was down there, because the City of Stirling, as you know, were over in Scarborough. Well, no, not exactly, but anyhow, over that way. They control the area from the river to the sea, and a lot of them didn't really know what they were talking about. So we produced this video. Let's see if I can get it going. It runs for about 10 or 15 minutes, and I won't try and talk over it. See if I can...
The Maylands Claypits.
You hear that?
It needs time to fully appreciate exactly what a wetlands area truly offers. Nature can't be hurried. You need to be there early in the morning when the day is beginning, through the day to observe in full light the comings and goings of bird life and fauna, at sunset as the wetlands community settles down for the night, and during the night itself you need to be there when things are heard rather than seen. This video is intended to telescope into a few minutes just a little of the activity that occurs at the Maylands Claypits. It covers just a few hours out of what is a very busy year for local bird life, migratory bird life, and other fauna. All of us are very busy people, and it is feared that the very future of these pelicans and other water birds might be threatened by busy people making decisions on something they simply have not had time to fully observe. This is not meant to be critical. It is a fact of life that there's never enough time to do everything. It is meant to be helpful to Stirling City councillors who are to make decisions on the development of the Maylands Claypits. One decision, to completely fill the pits with sand, would effectively mean the destruction and loss forever of these valuable wetlands. And that would be a loss to the community of significant environmental values which add considerably to the community's quality of life. The people for the peninsula do not oppose development. Rather, we fully realise that an investment has been made by the city and a reasonable return on that investment must be made to ratepayers. What we do oppose is the total destruction of this quite beautiful area. Beautiful now in its raw natural state, but capable of being developed to retain the greater part of that beauty, so all can enjoy it without its essential qualities being destroyed. This flow of fresh water into the northern pit is just one of the important reasons why this wetland area is popular with bird life and fauna. It flows all year round and supplements the large volume of rainwater that is caught and retained each year in the pits. The people for the peninsula's option for the limited development of the clay pits recognises, we believe, a very significant factor, and that is that the area offers good potential to greatly enhance any residential development. Few people even realise that this area exists, right on the city's doorstep, close to the best of amenities: waterland, boat launching ramp, the Swan River, golf, bowling and tennis clubs, public transport. Our option, while proposing fewer building lots, means those lots will be of far greater attraction than the ghetto-like option proposed by the city's present concept: 1,000 building units crammed into the same area. The conclusion is logical. Far higher prices can be charged for much more attractive building lots. The return to the city and its ratepayers will be increased proportionately. This adds considerable viability to the option proposed by the people for the peninsula. There is another very important factor which we would ask you to consider, and that is the impact of maximum residential development of the Claypits on existing residents. The Maylands ward of the City of Stirling is currently zoned 98% medium to high density, the highest zoning of this type in the city and probably the highest in the metropolitan area. Development of this nature in the area has already degraded quality of life for ratepayers considerably. Maylands ward ratepayers are prepared to accept the inevitability of this to a certain degree, but argue it is simply not fair to foist even more of the same on them. particularly when it means the loss to them of one of the few large breathing spaces left in their overcrowded ward. It isn't just the ratepayers who will be crowded out, the long-necked tortoise will be too. In fact, more than being overcrowded, it will be the death of the tortoise in its Maylands Claypits habitat. The long-necked tortoise is prolific in this area. The species is easily found in the rushes lining the banks of the pits and is another argument for preserving this habitat of bird life and fauna within the heart of the metropolitan area. An important factor in the People for the Peninsula option is to retain as much as possible the naturalness of the area. This has significance for any initial work carried out on the clay pits and for future maintenance. The initial work would only require some reforming of the banks, shaping them to conform with development work and making them safe for whoever visits the area. Maintenance would be minimal. The option does not propose extensive landscaping and grassing of the area, with a subsequent need for elaborate reticulation and constant watering. The model we have prepared says it all. The majority of the wetlands are preserved, with most importantly, their quality being improved. The environmental advantages they offer in their present, close to the city location, can be enjoyed not only by those who will reside in the area, but to visitors as well. By offering the residential section of the project as a prestige development in a rare nature sanctuary, alongside valuable riverfront land, the City of Stirling will acquire a reasonable return on its investment, and there will be a quicker time span for the completion of the project. And that leads us to one very important final point, the impact of full development and filling of the pits. It is simply not reasonable to thrust upon existing residents in the area the harmful effects that this work will generate over many years. The traffic of heavy trucks carrying hundreds and thousands of meters of sand, the noise and the potential for damage to existing residences by sound compaction, all of this over a number of years is a lot to expect existing residents to accept. The compaction process is of particular concern. Apart from the possibility of damage to houses, the incessant noise from such work will cause distress to residents. Since test compaction has moved to the North Pit, it can be easily demonstrated that the repetitive pounding can be clearly heard up to 500 meters away, and to a lesser degree, up to a kilometer away. There are many people in residence throughout the working hours of each day, and the nuisance level to them over the many years of the project will be extremely distressing and possibly injurious to their health and general welfare. This is the noise they will be constantly subjected to. has been carried out to suit both schemes of development of the Claypits. We urge Council to consider the immense cost of the total fill and perched wetland concept as against the People's Plan. It has been estimated that the cost of the test fill was approximately $750,000, and this for only half a hectare. There are 36 hectares to go. This means that a total fill and perched wetland scheme could easily cost ratepayers as much as $50 million over 10 years. The People's Plan, including the treatment of saline leakage, would only cost a fraction of this, as the plan concentrates on retaining the natural features of the wetlands. This would provide a good return to the City of Stirling over a much shorter timescale. There is an option.
All I've got to find is the eject button. Can't see it. Yeah. You see?
That one down there.
At the bottom, isn't it?
Yeah.
This one?
That one.
Oh. Now, from there on, whether it was that video or our constant attack on the City of Stirling, they went out for several quotes, as I said before, and it was determined, there were many meetings about this. They produced their own scheme, again of, they said, oh, now what we'll do is we'll build we'll build a perched wetland, and the residents objected to it. There was a meeting, 100 people attended. They never got one vote for it, and I can remember the mayor being so disappointed that that the people didn't like it at all. So time went by, and they got further estimates of what it would cost, and finally, I think really politically. Out in Stirling themselves, they realised they weren't going to win this. So a guy by the name of Satterley came along, and we did figures, and we said to the city that if they went the way that we're suggesting, as you could see on the video there, they would make about $5 million out of this. Each block, we estimated, would sell for about $100,000. And Satterley came up with two propositions, actually. One was, that's a bit top heavy there, was sitting all right before, there you go. He actually, and there's a book here I'd get you to have a look at afterwards, he actually, I didn't realise this, he suggested there were two options. One was to cut into the river. Did you realise that? He did. And then there was a second option, which is basically this one here. It wasn't really the ultimate that we would like to have seen it all park and retain the whole lakes and things, but this was followed very much like the residents themselves have said that was a good option. And I believe the city made $8 million out of it. So, and that was developed the way it is today. Now, I have a video here which is only about 10 minutes long, which actually shows the progress of the development, basically, of the North Pit. I think that should run it. Now, I will talk over this a little bit because it runs on, there's no commentary on it. You'll see here, it's all been decided, and Satterley's now commenced work. He brought equipment up from Bustleton, I believe. He had a time limit to do it. It was in his own best interest to do it. And the design was, the way they were going to do it was to pump out the North Pit. They pumped out the North Pit into the South Pit, and the South Pit overflowed into the river. I think that's what happened, wasn't it? And this video shows you the pumps pumping. They had about 4 or 5 6-inch pumps pumping into the South Pit. And this video just goes backwards and forwards and shows over a period. You can see this is the day after Boxing Day at 6:30 in the morning. I used to walk down there every morning, would you believe that? And old Joe used to live there, of course. You see it being discharged into the North Pit, and the poor old birds wondering what was going to happen. But they decided that as this North Pit was going lower and lower, they'd be in for the kill. And you'll see in a minute the numbers of birds that actually did assemble there to get the final little fish and that out of it. This is the South Pit here. It's quite a big expanse of water, remembering this is now December, the end of December, how big it was. Can you people see over there? Would you like to move over, if you're all right? No. And so the North Pit is going lower and lower. I can't really hurry this along. We've got a few minutes anyhow. But it gets down to virtually just a trickle of water. And I think there's a bit of commentary later on. It's basically, I walked around and around it just to show, you know, the slow levels down. I think about this time it had been running about a week, and it dropped about 10 feet. There's a terrific expanse of water there.
Why did they want to empty that first?
Well, they had to empty it to reform the edges and to sort of slope them down and to use, well, not as much as they could, but they had to level out the surrounding edges. We said level it all out and build on the edges, but to retain one side environmentally, that was the west side. So I think this is the side here now. There's all sorts of things that have been dumped into there. The old AMP building finished up there. The strong room was there, and so this video progresses to show you when they actually started work. Maybe I should try and hurry it along a bit. Which is the fast there?
I think it's this one here.
Is it?
I think so. Try that one.
Frank, Frank,
Pardon?
it's recording very well on this.
Is it? Oh, good. We'll hurry this along just to see the north. That's the South Pit. Well, that's the North Pit there.
Frank, one of the arguments about filling, of course, was too that all these migratory birds that came from China,
That's right.
etc. Do you know, I mean, there's a lot less birds than we ever had there. Do you know if that's...
I don't think so. Honestly, I don't. I've never seen a pelican in there.
No.
And the pelicans sort of roost at the bottom of the peninsula, but the swans have come back. Strangely enough, there are more swans there now than there are the other birds. But these little wader birds, I haven't seen them there. And there, so you can see the pelicans are beginning to gather. Old Joe Winchell, as you know, lived there, and we used to go down, and I think this is the time he rang me. He said, "Come on down, Frank." He said, "Look at all the birds down here." And of course they were just waiting for the kill. This is that evening. That's right, he'd called me down. I know.
Frank, another thing, one of the arguments that you people put up was about, taking the load off Kings Park, making that more, recreation for the general public. And at the weekend, friends from Bustleton visited, and they'd been to Kings Park to have their lunch, and they said they couldn't find a seat to sit on.
No.
It was so full.
Yeah.
And actually it brought to mind, I was just saying to them, that's what we wanted.
That's right, yeah.
The committee was driving.
I think today, in today's world, I think we might have won it, Yeah. People are more environmentally mindful of it. But we did the best thing possible. There's no real spirit in it, in the development down there in my mind. We dropped a few extra pamphlets there the other day, and I walked the streets there, and there wasn't a dog barking. I never saw a cat, never saw a child. It was just sort of, they've all gone to work,
Yeah.
I didn't go over your way, but I'm talking about in the main development there.
It's quite different.
Yeah. Yes. Now you begin to see there's very little water left. That's the sign they'd put up, of course, and that's their overall diagram, which is basically this one here. Now this is where they're beginning to reform it. They started off at the real top end there, where the water comes down from that lot we used to know as lot 508, and this is the stream. This is must be that one. That's it. What have I done? Yeah, I put it to my controller.
What do you want to do?
She's one with the eyes. Just put it. That's right.
What do you want to stop it?
Yeah.
Play it?
Yeah, stop it. Not stop it. No, just slow it down. That's normal. Yeah.
508 into a holding dam, into the holding dam there, which is holding at the moment, and then that will be let through to the North Pit. Looking and to the easterly direction, you can see there's another stream there coming from the east, more easterly, joining the stream from lot 508, forming down into the common stream, into the holding pond, which is basically a holding pond at the moment. All this has been stripped of its top bricks, if you like, or stroke soil, all for the good, I believe. Birds are having a magnificent time here at the moment with the insects and things. Woolly wagtails and peewees mainly. The water birds, I have seen one or two water birds in the holding pond, but it's mainly the insect type birds here with having a feast on the insects from the newly turned ground. See over there the development, which has now been raised almost to finish level. I'll now walk around the pond. Here of another spring coming from towards the brickworks, which is very wet here, the ground. Quite obviously a breakthrough from the water table.
That's in February.
There's the holding pond there, and it will, the water I imagine will be allowed to exit from that far side. I don't know whether in a deep stream or possibly broadened out. Quite know what they're going to do with that. This is a view looking southwest towards the airport over there. You see this is where they formed the two islands and the shallowed out for the wading board, the wading birds. The golf course there in the background. I think this is going to be a wall along here. Seems like that's what they're forming there, foundations for a wall. Certainly over there on the test pad, they're building the walls in. This is another view back across the park to lot 508 there, and the distance across the settling pond, which this area should be quite nice.
That's 2 months have gone by there.
It's really deep, isn't it? I didn't think it was as deep
Yeah,
as that.
yeah. There's a lot of that water in the bottom there would come from the streams and probably a bit of overnight rain or whatever. It's the summer period, of course. It's now in yeah. You'll see in a minute it suddenly grows like topsy.
This is the site of the rising main sewage.
Yeah, that's interesting.
The pump has been fitted in what used to be Johnson Road. The pump is at the end of this shot and it comes towards us this way. The rising main towards the golf course. This is the South Lake, which of course is now filled up more with the water from the North Lake. And the water will eventually be pumped back into the North Lake very soon now. In the sewer line trench, and where those big pipes are, they go way down to the ground, and that's where the sewer pump is. The number one.
This is that brick fence along the.
note this is July 1998 and stage A of this project is almost complete. They're beginning to build houses here, and I must say it is very much according to the community's wishes, which we fought for something like 8-10 years for. The North Pit now is down being refilled, having been drained earlier in the year. And planting is going on now over on the environmental area, over in this direction, over on the far side.
This is at the rear of Joe's place. Yeah, he just sold it. These two dogs.
He wouldn't sell this Saturday.
Pardon?
He wouldn't sell this Saturday.
No.
As you can see, this is our south boundary of our property. They have excavated here now to put the fence down. And as you can see, this one here, of course, that was our tank stand or his skillet. But maybe 4 weeks time from now, we will know if we get the money, then it's not our business.
The money's important, Joe.
Yeah, well, it should be. But we've had a good time, and you can't stop general development, so we might as well take it as it comes. Stop it, no. I think they got the dignified that today there.
Are they? That's stage 2 down there, has been developing.
Just a few more minutes and you'll see the final... there's a shot I'd like to show you here. We'll just wait a few more minutes.
Where was Joe's place?
Pardon?
Where was Joe's place on the map?
It was on well, really along along Peninsula Road. He had 2 acres, I think, there. And was it 2 acres?
Down the bottom.
Yeah. He,
L-shaped and came out with the dogs.
yes. It's been subdivided now and built on.
Project is now nearly over in the North Pit. Stage 1 they call it. Needs some general shots showing the starting of the building, etc. The situation is that Joe and Gertie have now moved out and the old house has been wrecked. And we'll show you some shots of the project as of the 8th of October 1998. This is the old North Pit, now being refilled again and replanted on the western side. 2 islands there being recreated, and what we knew as the test field site has been restructured to take the very expensive housing.
This is what I wanted to show you.
And there's a sight for sure, right?
I think there's one last shot of the houses being built. Yeah. Apparently the water quality is maintained. I don't know. Do they test it regularly? I wonder. I've got water at home of the original water, just to compare. There we are. Some of the first houses. So I think we'll leave it at that. Yeah, so that's basically the peninsula as it developed. It took 10 years of our lives, you can say, but it was well worth it. I mean, we weren't in those days. We were going to lose it. And so we've basically retained the two lakes, but the birds haven't really come back, and more the pity, but they may eventually. It takes a long time for it to happen. So I hope you've enjoyed that, to see the... yes, Alan, would you like a quick question?
You mentioned that it was expected they would get about 100,000 for the original blocks, which I think they did.
More than
it's
that.
Interesting now that you can't get a block under $1 million.
Is that a fact? Yeah.
Well, there are quite a few.
Yeah. I think the upset price in that when they put it on the market was about 200,000.
I remember on the sign it was like 169,000 on the sign at the start. I remember seeing.
Unfortunately, we were unable to secure a block at that stage.
I see.
My husband was too stingy to buy.
Now it's a different... Now, I mean, you could invest now down there, $1 million a block, no worries.
Congratulate all these people, yourself and Wendy and Alan, of course, who initiated, but Brad and Terry and Councillor Veronica
Cook. That's right. Well, it was. I talked to Brad.
Andy was the power behind the group. Because he was an expert. He understood water quality and birds as well.
I asked him to come along tonight, but they're heading north, and he just couldn't make it. But maybe we'll show it again. Where they're going up north for 3 months, and
I've just from visitors, and my wife's saying, where is it? Well, we've actually seen it. We've walked around. I tell my grandchildren learn to ride their bikes around there. But while we were going around, I've also ridden a lot with a cycling club around there.
Oh, so, good.
And I've always thought, my gosh, that Stirling Council had a lot of foresight. Other people they were to do that, because there's nothing to give any indication of what you're talking about.
No, that's right. Well, there is a plaque there when it was opened, but that's the purpose of this society. We save these things, and about 10 how long ago was that? 98. Well, 10 years later, people don't know. Just like the old aerodrome. There's a lot of people in Maylands wouldn't believe there was an aerodrome down there, and that's the purpose of our society. So, to keep these things and show them. Yeah, so it's a good example of what the community can do. There's quite a few things around Maylands going on that you're probably not aware of. The rebuilding the high rise of Maylands. It's been in the papers. A lot of people don't realise it.
Just next door.
Next door.
Yep.
Yeah, they're chopping into public open space. All quietly. It's all being done. So people are, just got to be aware of it. The ratepayers do what they can, and the problems that we've had. Faye, you were asking the question before about the security in Maylands. Unfortunately, no longer can anyone afford to put police walking around the streets. They should do, but they can't. So this last month or so, I represented the ratepayers to push for CCTV of Maylands, and we at the finish of this meeting, we were told that it has now been ordered. So 8th Avenue and most of Maylands will be under CCTV. So feel a bit safer.
Well, there's still nobody here.
No.
We go to.
No, that's right.
They can watch us get better.
Yeah.
I'd just like everyone to put their hands together and thank Frank for a wonderful presentation. He's certainly gone a lot of trouble, and I've learnt such a lot. We've only been here for 10 years and never realised that. No. So just like you all to thank Frank and come up after us and have a look at some
that's some of the photos we have here.
Enjoy a cup of coffee. Before we do that, we'll draw the raffle.
Yes, that's right.